Hello and welcome to this lecture on Entrustable Professional Activities, also known as EPA, which is a very authentic assessment model that has been extensively used in healthcare. My name is Vaikuntan Rajaratnam and I'm a hand surgeon, a medical educator and instructional designer and doing research in this area of education and assessment. So let's look at assessment. What is assessment with EPAs? So EPAs was introduced to make real authentic world evaluation of healthcare professionals to work independently at a particular task in the work environment. So the EPAs are very useful when there are tasks, there are activities that needs to be performed in the real world. And they cannot necessarily just confine to motor tasks, but can be also be cognitive tasks. What is looking for is the level of competency in which a teacher is comfortable to allow the person to independently perform the task without any harm to the environment, to the individuals or themselves. And here is where it is real and authentic because it connects real world to the theory of learning. So the origins were basically in medical education, moved from traditional knowledge-based to competency-based education. And then because all healthcare professionals were required to perform in the community in a fit-for-purpose manner, EPAs would evolve to identify what was needed in the community for that professional to be able to function well. So the EPAs were then designed and developed and validated in various healthcare environment, and in many medical institutions it has been accepted as a form of training for medical professionals. EPAs became popular with healthcare education because the whole model provided the framework for the supervision that was gradually reduced as the competency improved, very similar to Vygotsky's zone of proximal support development. And it provided clarity in the expectations for the trainees, and it prepared them for independent practice when they were ready. So they became fit for purpose. And there's evidence that EPAs improve patient care. Defining EPAs for any form of learning, I believe EPAs can be transcend specialities and domain and can be used in other areas, and it's worth more research needs to be done. It allows for the first to identify the competencies. So first you describe what you want at the end of it, very similar to outcome-based education. And so we write our learning outcomes, but here we identify the competencies. So it's working backwards, knowing what the person needs to be doing in the community. That's your whole overall objective of your learning program. Then you design your EPA for each of that area. And then you create specific activities and tasks and assignments that are needed to be able to function in that community. And so this becomes the essential competencies. From there, to be able to understand and make sure that everybody are in alignment, you need a stakeholder involvement to be engaged in the development of that professional activity. Once that is done, then you are able to move to the next level. So the challenges uh, in the production of EPA is the resistance to change. In healthcare, it took a long time, and so the various hybrid and modified forms are already in place. And there may be suddenly you realize there's a misalignment in the curriculum. So the curriculum needs to be redesigned and redeveloped based on what is needed in the community. And you need to engage faculty because they are the one who will be delivering the EPA, and therefore their ownership and cooperation would be needed, and this is how you do that through stakeholder engagement. And the value of EPA will be seen both at the end by all stakeholders in that educational program. So one of the important aspects of the EPA is the role of mentors and supervisors. And this was very much the apprenticeship model that was used in surgical training and in health professional training. But we're bringing that back because the mentor is the one who is the professional in place, in practice, in the community, who can provide the support and guidance and enhance and empower that learning experience and providing feedback along the way, and then to slowly move out of supervision as the confidence level in performance improves. So one of the important components is how do you assess an EPA? So one of the because if it is a very much a task oriented, then direct observation. Direct observation of practice or procedures is well ingrained into healthcare performance. And today with technology, we can video this, making sure it's blockchain to ensure that at the right time and place and right person is being assessed. And these can then be evaluated asynchronously, improving efficiency and productivity. It also allows for self-assessment, and here's where portfolios can come in, and logbook requirements are mandatory in healthcare professionals, so that documents the journey of learning that occurs over the period of time in training, and then this is then continued and it's owned by the learner for lifelong, because in healthcare and as in everything now, you need lifelong learning. And it also allows the opportunity, and again with technology, it's very useful to get multi-source feedback so that you can evaluate their attitudes and their team playing and interprofessional and collaborative abilities. So there were various tools, and one of them is checklist. Here's an example of an EPA checklist. The checklists are very, very detailed. It takes into account every aspect of the knowledge, the skill, the attitude, all of which are then comprehensively evaluated and shows the competencies that they are able to achieve. The rating scales, various levels are used. You can use the same tool to evaluate them as early, then you see that they are in the early phase of their development, and towards the end of the training, they should have reached a level of expertise or mastery. And it's important also the role of reflective journal. Again, we come back to the portfolio. This is part and parcel of the portfolio. The feedback mechanism is crucial because the feedback is for the purposes of improvement and learning, and leads them towards the confidence level to be able to practice independently. And it has to be timely and constructive. Here again, technology can help us. Generative AI can provide immediate synchronous feedback as the performance is being conducted by the learner, and these can be recorded and can be evaluated by the teacher to make sure that the feedback was appropriate. It is quite expensive in terms of resource intensive to give real-time feedback in person, so the role of generative AI is very useful, and here's where it incorporates continuous improvement, which is requirement in any learning program. Enhanced learning outcomes is what you need to be able to use this type of curriculum. So the EPA really makes sure that the individual just doesn't learn knowledge, but it integrates knowledge, skills, and attitudes, leading towards mastery. And it motivates them because face and content validity of the learning materials and the learning experience can be related to real-world situations. In preparing for a real-world practice, the competency must be clearly defined in the EPA towards the task that is needed in the real world. And one of the important aspects is whatever that is being performed, it must be performed at a level of safety in terms of the individuals and stakeholders involved in the community for the skill that which the individual is being trained. And so patient safety is one of the major factors in the EPA, and the attractiveness, its real-world application. So the usefulness of the EPA allows for accountability and reliability. So everything is clearly documented, and the journey is clear for both the teacher and the learner, and the focus is on the outcome. It's no longer time-based, it's no longer steeped in taking 6 weeks, 9 months. As long as the individual has achieved the level of competency at the set for his level of training, he has completed that EPA. And the assessment tools are very reliable, and over time this has been developed and improved, and each EPA would require its own unique assessment tool. So here's an example of our use of EPAs in creating competencies in Cambodia. We have now been there for 13 years, but over a 5-year period, we understood the needs of the community. We created EPAs for specific areas, and one of the examples is brachial plexus surgery. We found what were the competencies needed. We taught the knowledge and skills to various teaching programs, and then finally observed them in performance, and they are now competent to carry out this. So it works, and we have evidence for that. I believe the future is in innovations within the EPA framework. There will be evolving assessment methods. One of the current drawbacks is the EPA assessment can be time consuming, but I think with the integration of generative AI and other forms of technology to capture learning occurring or direct observation of procedures, we can make this more meaningful and less hassle for both the learner and the teacher. This is the ideal moving forward with personalized learning to occur. So in conclusion, EPAs are an exciting model for non-healthcare professionals, and I think gives you an opportunity. I hope you can look at it and see how you could integrate EPA within. Start small, focus on real-world competency, and I think you will see very exciting results, and it's a potential area for research. Thank you, and good luck.